The sound of sirens echoed in the quiet neighborhood of Maplewood as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the pavement. 16-year-old Emma Carter stood on the porch of her family home, her heart heavy with grief. Just days ago, her father had been alive, his laughter filling their modest house. Now, all that remained was a gaping void and the whisper of unanswered questions. Emma, her stepmother Laura, called from inside, her voice strained with worry. "Come inside, it's getting cold." Emma hesitated, staring out at the gathering darkness. Her father had been the cornerstone of their family, a kind and hard-working man who had put his family first. His sudden heart attack had shattered their lives, leaving Emma to grapple with a whirlwind of emotions, anger, confusion, and a profound sense of loss. But now, something else was nagging at her, a feeling deep in her gut that something was off with Laura. Emma stepped inside, and the smell of burnt lasagna filled the air. Laura stood at the stove, stirring a pot absent-mindedly. She was beautiful in a way that seemed almost too perfect. Her dark hair framed her delicate features, and her green eyes sparkled with an intensity that made Emma uneasy. "Are you okay?" Laura asked, turning to face her, a hint of concern etched on her face. "I'm fine," Emma replied, forcing a smile. But the truth was, she wasn't fine. She had witnessed Laura's uncharacteristic behavior since the funeral, the way she'd been too eager to return to normalcy, throwing herself into chores as if to mask her grief. "Dinner's ready," Laura said, setting the table with a practiced grace. "We need to keep our spirits up." As they sat down to eat, the conversation felt stilted. Laura spoke about mundane topics: work, neighbors, the weather, while Emma picked at her food, her mind racing. It was as if Laura was trying to distract herself from the reality of their loss. And the more Emma watched her, the more she felt that something was hidden beneath the surface. The days following the funeral blurred together. Emma went back to school, her friends offering condolences, but their sympathy felt hollow. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong with Laura. One afternoon, while rummaging through her father's old boxes in the attic, Emma stumbled upon a dusty scrapbook filled with family photos and mementos. As she flipped through the pages, she saw pictures of her father smiling and laughing, moments frozen in time. Then, at the back of the scrapbook, she found something that made her stomach drop: a series of photos featuring Laura and a man Emma barely recognized. He was older, with salt and pepper hair and a warm smile. The two of them were close in every photo, laughing, their faces alight with joy. Confused, Emma's heart raced. Who was this man? And why hadn't her father mentioned him? She turned the page, and the photos shifted from casual gatherings to something more intimate. Laura leaning into the man, a flirtatious glint in her eye. Emma's breath hitched. The realization was like ice in her veins. Laura had been hiding something. She felt a storm brewing inside her, a mix of betrayal and rage. "Emma," Laura called from downstairs, breaking her reverie. "What are you doing up there?" "Just looking for some old stuff," Emma replied, her voice tight. "Come down. I need your help with something," Laura said, her tone sweet but strained. With a heavy heart, Emma reluctantly closed the scrapbook and descended the stairs. As she entered the kitchen, she resolved to uncover the truth behind the photos. This was no longer just about her father's death. It was about Laura's secrets. Chapter 3. The Family Friend. The following week, the funeral attendees had begun to dissipate, but one figure remained constant: Greg, her father's longtime friend. He was a kind man, always supportive, but Emma noticed the way he lingered near Laura. Their exchanges filled with a tension she couldn't ignore. Emma's suspicions grew each time she saw them together: an accidental touch, a shared laugh that lingered a moment too long. One evening, as Emma sat on the porch, she saw Laura and Greg standing at the edge of the yard, their voices hushed. The wind carried bits of their conversation to her, and she strained to listen. "I can't believe he's gone," Greg said, his voice low and mournful. "You should have come to me. I would have helped you. I didn't want to burden you," Laura replied, her voice soft, almost seductive. "You've been there for me. More than anyone else." Emma felt a surge of anger. What was going on? The way they spoke to each other felt intimate, and a dark instinct told her that their relationship went beyond mere friendship. That night, unable to sleep, Emma's mind raced. She needed proof. In the early hours of the morning, she crept downstairs, grabbing her phone and slipping out the door. She didn't know where she was headed, only that she had to confront the truth. Emma drove to Greg's house, a modest two-story nestled in a quiet neighborhood. The street was dark, illuminated only by the pale glow of streetlights. Her heart pounded as she parked and approached the door. She hesitated, wondering if she should turn back, but the need for answers propelled her forward. She knocked softly, the sound echoing in the stillness. A moment later, the door opened, and Greg stood there, surprised to see her. "Emma, what are you doing here?" he asked, his brow furrowed in concern. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. He stepped aside, letting her in. "Of course. Come in." Inside, the house smelled of coffee and something sweet baking in the oven. Emma felt out of place, but she pushed through the discomfort. "Is Laura here?" she asked, her voice sharper than intended. Greg looked taken aback. "No, she's at home." "Why? Is everything okay? Are you having an affair with her?" Emma blurted out, her eyes locking onto his. Greg's expression shifted, confusion morphing into guilt. "Emma, that's not. Don't lie to me." "I saw the photos," she interrupted, her voice rising. "I know something is going on between you two." "Photos?" He paused, collecting himself. "Emma, listen. It's complicated. Laura and your dad were having problems before he died. She turned to me for support, that's all." "Support?" Emma scoffed. "Is that what you call it? Please, let me explain." He rubbed his temples, visibly stressed. "After your dad's passing, Laura was devastated. I was there to comfort her. It's not what you think." Emma felt a wave of nausea wash over her. "So you admit there's something between you?" "Not like that. I care about her, but it's not an affair. It's a friendship that turned into something more complicated in a moment of weakness. Your dad just died, Emma. We were both grieving." She shook her head, anger boiling within her. "You don't get to play the victim. You're betraying my father's memory." Greg's expression hardened. "You need to be careful with accusations like that. You don't understand the whole story." Emma clenched her fists. "I'll find out the truth. You can't hide it forever." Chapter 5. The investigation. Emma left Greg's house feeling more determined than ever. She knew she needed to gather evidence, not just for her own sake, but for her father's memory. The next day, she began her investigation, quietly observing Laura and Greg, searching for any sign of their secret. At school, Emma confided in her best friend, Sarah. "I think my stepmother is having an affair with my dad's friend," she whispered during lunch. "What? No way!" Sarah exclaimed, glancing around to make sure no one else could hear. "Are you sure?" "I found photos, and I saw them together," Emma replied, her voice trembling. "I need your help to figure this out." The following weekend, Emma and Sarah devised a plan to dig deeper. They would stake out Greg's house, hoping to catch Laura and Greg together. With a backpack filled with snacks, they parked a block away, hiding in the back seat of Emma's car, waiting for any sign of Laura. Hours passed, and just as the sun began to set, they saw Laura's car pull into Greg's driveway. Emma's heart raced as they watched Laura step out, her body language too casual, too comfortable. "This is it," Emma whispered, her throat dry. "We need to get closer." They crept from the car, moving stealthily towards Greg's house. As they approached, they could hear snippets of their conversation through an open window. "Are you sure this is the right thing?" Laura's voice trembled. "Emma could find out." "We can't hide forever," Greg replied. "You need to let go of the past. You deserve happiness." Emma's breath caught in her throat. "Happiness?" she hissed to Sarah. "This is insane." Just then, the front door opened, and Laura stepped out, her expression conflicted. Emma's heart raced as she pulled out her phone, capturing a photo.